Hi, welcome back to Cambridge Inside Out. We have another, I'm Judy Nathans, excuse me. And then
I'm Robert Winters.
And I'm Will MacArthur,
Right.
and I'm running for Cambridge School Committee.
Right.
Now, Will, I want to point out, is guilty of recidivism because he's been on the
Oh,
program
yes,
before.
when he was a senior, talking about the elections, right, or the school elections.
Well,
Yeah.
that's right. When we first had Will on here, he was still at Cambridge Ridge High School.
I was writing for the register form.
Writing for the register form, and was a big proponent of utilizing ranked choice voting in the Cambridge school elections, which happened, and I got to do the counting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you were excited about that.
I was thrilled, actually. I said, this is great fun.
Yeah.
And he did it that year, and then we did it this year
again,
as well.
yeah.
So this is the guy that made it happen. So.
And you're now at Harvard.
I just finished my freshman year at Harvard, yeah.
Yeah, not hard enough for you? You have to decide to run for school committee too?
Well,
What's going on there?
If I get elected to
Yeah.
school committee, I'm planning on taking time off
I think I
of
heard
college,
you mention.
at least
Really?
for a year.
Really?
I think that would be a little much.
That's
you know?
interesting.
You know, I think you should think about that, because I think
Why?
you might be able to do both just fine.
But maybe he doesn't want to. Maybe he really wants to. Why are you talking him out of it?
I think I definitely wouldn't. I know that the school committee is conceived as a part-time job, and I think that the school committee does function well when people treat it as a part-time job. But I also think that in terms of starting it for just 1 year of a term, it's useful to be able to build the time to build those relationships.
So I'm going to make a parallel, because we have students at MIT. What they do is they do like sophomore year abroad.
Oh,
Okay, so this is like your sophomore
Except
year.
they're not paid
Right?
Except they're paid to be, but you're going to be being paid versus paying someone to have that experience. So that's kind of nice, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I would say so.
Yeah. And actually, before we get into the "Who are you" part of this thing, I just want to say, because you did a kickoff event actually.
I missed that. I'm sorry, I missed that.
It was called Hot Dog. It was Picnic in
Politics.
Up at Danahy Park.
It was the day before July 4th?
It was the first day that nomination papers were tossed.
Oh, the Monday, the 3rd, yeah.
July 3rd,
Yeah.
you know. And I think I counted, I think I counted 11 candidates total who at one
Showed up,
point or another
yeah.
showed up. And I thought, now this reminded me of the good old days.
Yeah.
You know,
and everyone seemed to be having fun.
people went to each other's events, you know, and they didn't do it in a manipulative way. They just did it.
It was a mixture of school committee and city councils, right?
It was mainly city council candidates.
Yeah.
And of course, that's always safe, because if somebody's running for something, you're not stealing their votes. Right.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So, anyway. So, Will,
Yeah,
So Robert,
who are you?
yeah.
All right, so let me ask anything. So we know you came out of Cambridge in school, but are you you lived in Cambridge your whole life?
yeah. So I was born in Boston, but since I was 2 days old, I lived in Cambridge.
All right, that's good enough. Yeah.
So yeah, I've lived in the same house in North Cambridge for.
So where did you go
19
to
years.
elementary school?
I went to the Grow and Parks.
Oh, okay.
For the 9 years between the two school rearrangements. I was
Okay,
at the Grow
all
and
right,
Parks.
that's right.
And then I went to Cambridge Ridge Latin School.
Right.
I graduated the class of 2016.
Wow.
Right.
And
Now, as a student, I know you were with the Register Forum at CRLS, but did you get yourself involved in any of the sort of political stuff, like student school committee or things like that at all?
I had a lot of friends on the student government. I covered them somewhat for the Register Forum. I wasn't involved in the actual student government itself. And then in terms of the school committee, I went to some meetings to advocate for issues that I thought were important.
Does the school committee have student representation on it? They do.
They have two non-voting.
So what does that mean? They go to every meeting?
They go to every meeting, and they also there's a time in every meeting where they actually turn to the school committee reps.
So did you ever run for that or no?
I did not.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, they do play a role, and you know, I don't go to too many school committee meetings.
Yeah.
You know, actually I haven't been to any in a couple of years right now, but oftentimes it was the student school committee reps who actually had a lot more insight than anybody else. You know, so they seem to take their job pretty seriously. I think Marjorie Decker
was the vice mayor. Mark McGovern.
Mark McGovern was as well.
Really?
So-
They were? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And I
So
think-
they've had this for a long time then.
Yeah.
'Cause
And
they're
I think
older.
that Mary this past year and
Good
Paul this past year.
Paul, who
Yeah.
by the way is the son of Michael Sullivan, right? So he's got strong political roots.
Yeah, and I think they did a
goodness.
great job with it.
Yeah.
I'm excited next
Interesting.
year. Juliet and Paul. Juliet, who's actually working on my campaign,
Oh,
and Paul are are two of the student
Yeah.
reps, and I think they're going to do a great
That's
job with it.
great.
All right.
Huh.
So you went to Harvard.
Mhm.
You just finished your freshman year at Harvard.
I did.
I always have to ask the question, why on earth
Yeah.
have you decided to run for school committee?
So I went to Cambridge Public Schools for 13 years, and especially toward the end of those 13 years, I was thinking a lot about how I thought the district could be better.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say I don't think I personally could have gotten a better education anywhere else in any school in Massachusetts, public or private, than I got at Cambridge in Latin, which I think is just a testament to how well the school does for some students.
Some student. Okay,
Yes.
there we go. So now
But
I
I think that it's a lot harder for people who aren't white, or people who aren't male, or people who aren't
privileged
straight.
or
Yeah. And the fewer intersections of privilege you have, I think the harder it is. And I think that I'm well positioned to kind of bring a focus on the opportunity gap and on student engagement and teacher engagement and family engagement to the district. And I think that we need a lot more from the school committee as a visioning body to kind of point the district in the right direction over the next 2 years.
But the change from K to 8 to the middle school, wasn't that sort of they saw it as a way to kind of counter some of that, lack of opportunity for certain groups to
I
bring
think-
people more
yeah.
together? Did you see that as a positive thing, or would you?
I think that was definitely how it was conceived.
Right,
I think
but whether it's
Yeah.
working or not?
I think that I definitely don't think that we should go back to K through 8
Okay.
at this point, but I think that it's been 5 years since
5 years,
we
wow.
implemented these schools,
Amazing.
and I think what that means is that we should take the time to really listen to what's going on
Yeah,
in these
because you
schools.
have enough data right now to see what's happening.
And people want to talk about what's going on in the middle schools. If you look at what people say in public comments and school committee meetings,
Really?
specifically there was a group of students from Putnam Ave, or parents from Putnam Ave, sorry,
Yeah,
who came to talk about their concerns around the quality of algebra instruction
interesting.
in
Yeah,
the school.
okay.
And so for that reason, I think it's really important to keep on the standing agenda. There's an item called the innovation agenda
Right,
that allows people to make public comment because of the open meeting law.
yeah.
You can make public comment about affairs in the middle schools. I think it's really important not to eliminate that item, as some people have mentioned doing in meetings.
Oh,
I think we need to preserve it, and I think we need to be more willing over the next 5 years to look back and say, okay, something like teacher turnover at the Vassal Lane, that seems like more of a frictional problem. So it seems to have gone down a lot. They seem to be doing a lot better in recent years. I think it's time to listen and see which of the problems aren't just going to go away with time, and which ones are structural problems we need to take another look at.
Right. I should remember when they were first enacting the so-called innovation agenda, which is really the restructuring the schools. They just needed a catchy name,
Yes.
right? So everything was innovation at the
Yeah.
time, so they found it in there, right? But I remember there was a real controversy because it was being sold that you were going to, because you wouldn't have, there was this dwindling population by the time we got into 7 and 8 in some
Right.
schools.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you wouldn't have critical mass to offer the range
Right.
of things that would really be ideal. So they said, well, if we actually funnel people into a common middle school that is it 3 feeder schools?
Four.
Per
It's
middle
4.
school?
There are 4 middle
There's
schools.
4 middle schools and
3 of them are fed by 3 feeders. 1 of them is fed by 2.
By 2, okay. But that was the idea, is that you would have this sort of way of consolidating. That was, to me, one of the better selling points about the whole idea. So that because you'd have something like 80 some odd students per class, I think, in the 7th and 8th grades, then that would be enough to actually offer
Yeah.
a range of different options that you could never do if you only had 9 or 10 in a
right,
class.
which
right?
is, I know when
Yeah.
my daughter
You know.
went to Cambridgeport, it was
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
And I hope that worked out. I don't know if there's any of the feedback talks about that actually working.
Well,
I
don't know.
think it definitely depends on which school
Exactly.
you end up going to.
Right. Yeah.
And talking to parents when I'm door knocking, one of the things I've heard about people considering picking kindergartens is that people have heard different things about different levels of performances at the different 4 upper schools. So to an extent, I think we haven't solved the problem that we set out to solve.
Right.
And
because you don't have a choice about which middle school you go to, right? If you go to this one school, you fed automatically into
Yeah.
that
Yes.
feeder.
Yeah.
Ah, so that's why they care about what school they're gonna go
Yeah.
to in kindergarten, because usually kindergarten, kindergarten, who cares?
And I mean, some things about the middle schools are awesome.
Yeah.
The Cambridge Street Upper School band, just as one example, I think they deserve a ton of credit for what they've been able to do to create an upper school band program where there really wasn't one
Right.
4 or 5 years ago. I know several of the middle schools have done great stuff ramping their students up with journalism before they go to high school. I think the athletic program at the middle schools generally works well.
Can I ask, what are the feeder schools for the Putnam Avenue School?
The Putnam Avenue,
Morse?
I think it's Morse, Cambridgeport, and the
Cambridgeport?
King. I'm not entirely sure.
alright.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the King, which is there already, okay,
Yeah.
definitely the Morse, and, okay.
I think Cambridgeport's the third, but Cambridgeport might feed the Cambridge Street Upper School.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. That's
Right.
interesting, because that's pretty far away, yeah, now, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other things that was sort of a big topic of discussion when they were doing the innovation agenda was, and again, this is my own bias because I teach mathematics, right?
Yeah, I remember we talked about this last year.
Right, yeah. But there was this notion of it that, because you have this good critical math, that if there were some students who were, wanting to do certain things, that you would need a little bit of choice.
Mhm.
But then they, at least for the first year, they sort of said, no, everybody's going into pretty much the same thing, whatever 7th grade math is or whatever, and they would differentiate within the classroom. But I heard there was sort of problems with that in the
Yeah.
execution, and they had
Huh.
to kind of amend that after a year. So apparently, the school administration was at least somewhat receptive to some of the feedback, right? But I have no idea because I haven't tuned in for a few years.
So you're saying, is that only a problem with the Putnam, the algebra thing, is it, is it,
I think in general there are opportunity gaps
okay,
around the district, and I think a lot of the algebra classes, especially in pass rate, the number of students who pass don't represent the students of the school as a whole.
I see,
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
but in general, I do think that a lot of the problems were solved on a school level. I know that at Cambridge Street Upper School, the Principal Fernandez, I know, has done a great job tackling a range of issues around that school. But then when students get to the high school, there's not as much of a district-wide experience that students have had that high school teachers can draw on.
Huh,
So
interesting, so they're coming, yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
So one of the things, I think that it was initially conceived largely with the goal of people having similar preparation for high school.
Right.
And I think
Exactly, right, that's what, and you're saying it's not that way.
I think that something I've heard from a lot of high school teachers is that their students have been learning different curriculum at the 4 schools, which I don't think is necessarily always a problem, but I think that we need to give teachers a lot more time and a lot more paid time where they can communicate with teachers in their subject area across grade levels in the district. So
I do wonder though, that, the King School is one of the feeder schools, and the King School is not picked by a lot of people, but people do want to go, it's a neighborhood school, so and same with the Moores.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering, you can have all the fanciest buildings you want, but you're still gonna have maybe this demographic issue? I don't know, it just seems like there's a difference in demographics in some of the schools.
I do think on the top line demographics around free and reduced lunch, the schools are
That's a good,
relative.
you look at that data and you'll see it right there, right?
Yeah. Well, there's relative parity between the 4 upper schools.
Okay,
In terms of stuff like ones that are fed by
well, the upper schools, but I'm looking at the lower schools.
at the lower
Yeah,
schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that
Mm-hmm.
we can't talk about equity in the district over
know.
the next 2 years without talking about
I know.
looking back at
Yeah.
controlled choice. And
Yeah, and they've tried to do the best. When my daughter went, it was based solely on I don't know what. Then they introduced socioeconomic
mhm.
income, right, to the choice, not just race. And,
Right.
Yeah.
But even that is.
I
I'm not sure what else they can do.
I always draw parallels between this and rewriting the income tax code. right? The thing is that so somebody says, well, this code is unfair because some people are, they're getting away with things, and other people are forced to, bear the burden. So they rewrite the code, and then it seems, for at least a little while, like it's fairer. But the people who have a lot of savvy always find a way to bend it to their advantage. And who wouldn't want to do that, right? I mean, because it's just a natural thing. You want to save your money, right? I always feel the same thing about parents, right? So you sort of set up a regulatory framework, like a version of controlled choice. But the thing is that every individual parent still wants to somehow advocate for and do the best for their individual kid.
And that's good.
Yeah,
I think
it's a good thing.
I think it's good to have,
but collectively,
it's good to have parents involved in the district, and it makes the district better. It is also something we need to be aware of when we're making policy. We always need to be aware of who isn't in the room and whose voices aren't at the table. And I think that we can do a lot to bring more people in by having even something like childcare at school committee meetings. The meetings that I've seen on the live stream or that I've been to that have childcare at them to get more attendance from parents. And I think also just one thing I would do if I were elected is spend a lot of time just going to events at each school.
Yeah. I was going to say, why not have a school committee meeting at a different school? Although, of course, it has to be recorded and all that, but still, that could be helpful.
The open meeting law is kind of nightmarish around that.
Right.
Yeah. Actually, one thing you said there, I find very appealing, because when I actually think about the sort of the long view, we did this whole big reshuffling of all the elementary programs back around, what was that, around 2001 or 2 or something like that?
Oh, right? Before they did the...
Yeah, basically...
Oh, they closed some schools, right.
Actually, let me go say that. Also, there was like a restructuring, at least one restructure I remember at the high school.
Oh, many. When my daughter was there, was every year it changed.
Pilot school and all that got changed to something else, whatever. Yeah. We seem to have a bit of a history of sort of allowing things to get to the point of total dysfunction and then do catastrophic change, which sometimes drives people out of the system, and then we go through a period of recovery. Then it's okay for a while, and then it falls apart again, and then we have to do the next catastrophic change.
Probably not just unique to us.
No, perhaps it's not, but what you're saying here about this notion about having a much more of a continuous feedback system so that you're not letting things get to the point where you need to intervene catastrophically.
And we've been doing this cycle for literally 400 years. If you go to the Cambridge Room at the Cambridge Public Library and you look at the history of Cambridge Public Schools going back to the 1640s, then there are discussions about who these schools are meant to serve.
Oh, right. I remember hearing something about this. Like race was involved. There was all kinds of things, I think. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And
you're right. Yeah.
I think that until we establish that we're trying, parents should be representing their children. The school committee should be representing the district. And I think that until we can get to the point where, as a body, with a set of 6 diverse perspectives, we're looking at how we can benefit the district now and in 10 years and in 30 years and in 100 years. 100 years might be a while, but but definitely, because I mean the time horizon from someone who starts pre-K, they won't graduate for another 14 years. So it is a big commitment.
Right.
And I think that in general, we need to move past thinking about it as playing to a specific constituency to get elected and then serving that constituency.
Good point.
And I think that the fact that we're elected at large gives us a great opportunity to conceive of it as representing the whole district and the whole city.
Right.
Now, since you did use the word constituency,
I see that you've got the document.
What?
Well, the thing is, you still have to get elected, right?
Yes.
And getting elected means you have to run a campaign, and you can, a person could, I suppose, try and target, 65,000 or whatever it is registered voters. That's a pretty expensive proposition.
Yes.
Most people tend to focus on particular areas, either geographically or issue-based or age groups or whatever. And I know you live in North Cambridge, right? So I would imagine you would have a bit of a natural match to people there.
There are a lot of great candidates from North Cambridge, though.
For running for school committee?
Running for school committee. Ms. Bowman is from North Cambridge.
Nika Bowman,
Ms.
Fran
Ms.
Cronin.
Cronin,
See, look at this.
yeah.
See, now I got to tell you something.
What?
See, because you're the 19-year-old candidate, but
Mhm.
you're all candidates together.
Yeah.
So it's got to be
Yeah.
Fran, Monika, and Will,
Yeah.
or else it's Mr. Bowman, Ms.
Oh.
Mr. MacArthur, etc. Like that, right? It's got to be all. We're all at parity here now.
All right.
So-
Fran, Monika, and Emily are from North Cambridge,
All right.
as am I.
Okay. So that's sort of one natural place you could draw from. And
Mhm.
Ward 11, I think, is one of the precincts that actually comes out typically in really good numbers.
Yes. 11-2.
11-2, you know, so that's a sort of, so there's some bit of a geographical base. You're also the youngest candidate by a significant margin,
Yeah.
and I imagine with a lot of, you know, because a lot of times the people who are voting for city council races, they also then cast a ballot for school committee, and
Mhm.
most people I know seem to be feeling that there's going to be a lot more younger voters who are going to vote in the, you know, even
general,
just for the
yeah,
city
there's a lot
council
of young
votes. So it seems to me
candidates.
you've
I'm
got
hoping that's true.
a little bit. Oh, hey, who's this guy here, right? You know, are there any particular constituencies other than those I mentioned there that sort of you think are sort of natural matches for your candidacy?
Well, I do think young voters will be very important. I also just think, in general, graduates of all ages of the Cambridge Public School system.
Yeah.
Right. They,
Right.
they tend to know each other a
Yeah.
lot. I was at your picnic in politics.
Yeah.
so I felt like I was
Yeah.
swarmed by CRLS graduates and current
Yeah.
students.
And a lot of the council candidates are CRLS graduates
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
with Richard Harding moving to the city council race,
Yeah.
there are no incumbents seeking re-election who graduated from Cambridge Public Schools.
Really?
Yeah.
Ah.
Really?
And I think that's
Well, that makes
that's
I
a
can
voice
see.
that should be present.
Interesting.
So I'm not running as just a 19-year-old graduate of Cambridge
You're running
Public
as
Schools. I'm
someone
running
that
as a
actually
graduate of Cambridge
is a
Public Schools.
product
Right.
of the schools.
Mhm.
I think that's pretty
That's
good.
actually a
Yeah.
good candidate. That's a good campaign thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I know Lawrence Kimber is also a product of the schools.
True.
And
Oh,
I think
well, that's
he's
true.
a
He
great
is running.
candidate, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're right.
Was he?
But there are
was
no
he at your
incumbents seeking
event
re-election.
too?
He was.
I thought so. He
Yeah.
was there early.
He was with
right?
his daughter.
Yeah, with his daughter. Yeah.
So he's older. He's Shirley Kimbrough's son, right? And his father was Les.
That's,
believe
yeah,
so.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So he's
And-
yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, there's an expanding list of candidates in
Yes.
Well, I
general.
hope it doesn't
But-
expand. Like if it gets to be like the city council race, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Before for the council, I was saying, as a voter, I'm really excited. Now that there are 30, I'm kind of thinking about how much
Yeah.
civic responsibility is to read all their platforms and everything.
Yeah, really.
Which is actually one of the reasons why I put together the Cambridge candidate pages in the first place,
Mm.
was so that there would be at least some place where
People
you
can at
could.
least see their faces and see what
you
they
know,
say. Yeah.
Let me tell you one thing I've noticed over the years is that the number of hits the candidate pages get in the few days right before the election
Oh.
is extraordinary.
Oh, you can see
You
that.
know,
Of course.
it hits the moon, right? But one of the things I've always felt about that, and there's no way I can know for sure, was that there are a lot of people who've decided who their number one vote is,
Mm,
but they still want to rank a few, so they want to find
Yeah.
out who the rest are,
Yeah.
Right.
and that's sort of a good place to do it, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so that's.
And going to forums. Are you all prepared for that?
Yeah,
I don't know how many. The school committee. Do they have as many? They
There's
don't
one
have as
Not
many.
as
scheduled.
many.
September 13th, the
Oh.
Mid-Cambridge.
Mid-Cambridge.
Oh, that's
They'll-
scheduled.
they'll-
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be others. There's different there's a special needs group that always schedules something. For school committee candidates.
I'm trying to remember how
and
many I went to.
we'll hear from them soon enough. So there'll be more.
There's one that
I mean,
was
it's
at the
pretty
high
early in
school.
the game.
Yeah.
I've been encouraging all the organizations to schedule as early as they can so that they can avoid conflicts.
I think
Sorry.
alumni or something hold one. I remember going to one at the high school run by alumni of the CRLS, older
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely
Yeah.
I'm excited to do a lot of outreach to alums of the Cambridge Public Schools. And one of the things I found is just talking to people who graduated long ago, who even people who didn't go to Ringe, but
Yeah.
who worked in the schools long
Yeah.
ago. It's just interesting to find out how
Mhm.
they used to do things and what worked back then and what didn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Like two summers ago.
It
before
sounds
I
like
was
you're
running-
you're like the historian.
Yeah.
You're even looking back into the 1600s, right? The
Yeah.
way things were.
And well, 2 summers ago, before I was running, I was working on a project that involved me talking to Sarah Mae Berman, who
My
served,
neighbor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, who served
right, she
for
was
8
a-
years in
yeah.
the 70s and the 80s. And it was,
Right.
She would know her stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
she had a lot to say about
Yes.
the different constituencies in Cambridge. And
Uh huh.
she was on the committee that brought about the unification of the high school.
Ah,
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's really right, yeah.
huh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
something.
But in general, I think, I mean, it's great to have a committee that has people with the educational expertise that some of the members have, or the experience that some of the members have.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's a committee of 6. I think it's valuable for
Plus
at
the
least
mayor.
it's a committee of 7, including the mayor, and I think
Right.
it's valuable for at least a couple of those people to be
Right.
alumni of the Cambridge Public Schools.
Did Denise go? She was raised in Cambridge, wasn't her, or was she not?
I
I
believe
know all
so.
of her kids were.
Yeah.
She went to the high school. Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, we got about a minute and a half here, so this is your chance.
Right. Give your pitch.
Straight to camera.
Yeah,
Why
straight to
should
camera, right?
they, why should
Camera
you,
one.
the voter,
Yeah.
give this guy your number 1 vote?
Okay. So, my name's Will MacArthur. I graduated from Cambridge Region Latin School in June 2016. I went to Cambridge Public Schools for 13 years. I've got a brother at Renge right now.
Oh.
And in general, as those sweatshirts always say, I'm just a kid from Cambridge.
Mm-hmm.
I understand this city deeply, and I love this city. I think that I'm not just a 19-year-old candidate for school committee. I'm someone who's looked at these issues very deeply, both as a student and as an alum. I'm someone who, at some point, would like to be a Cambridge Public Schools parent. I'm someone who hopes to spend my life in Cambridge and hopes to do productive work on the school committee. And I'm running now because I think the school committee needs it. I'm running because I think that, I don't know if you want to sign off, but
Oh, no,
I'm
No,
running,
you get another 10 seconds.
I'm
Go
running.
ahead.
I'm running because I think that over the next 2 years we're going to be making important decisions about the future of this district, and I hope that you'll give me your number 1 vote on November 7th.
And on that note,
Yes.
this has been another edition
Wow,
of Cambridge
yeah.
Inside Out.